I want to talk about the details and why I think it's somewhat of a dangerous route to go into detail too early. In my personal experience, what I found out is that when I have an urge, some kind of calling, let's put it this way, to start making detail, it's a good chance that I'm trying to hide something. It's a good chance that I'm trying to get away from discomfort of seeing my own work not being to the level that I want it to be. Right? So that's just my personal discovery. That's just my key, I would say, almost like a bell ringing, saying that I need to do something about the structure of the model that I'm working on before I do proceed with the details. So this example is a free model, so I am going to examine that, and I'm going to also try and just point out another thing about details that I find quite interesting. So what I think is happening is the brain, or my brain, and well, I can only speak from my personal point of view. I think the brain just in general sees details better than it does see the underlying forms. It's almost the same as the saying, which is you don't see forest for the trees, right, or something like that. So basically we see the trees, but we don't see the forest that makes that is made out of those trees, right? We don't see the bigger picture, basically. So this is kind of this I'm trying to say pretty much the same thing, that the first thing that we do see is the detail, right? And the detail sells the importance of what we are looking at, not the underlying thing that is behind those details. And so here, if I start to well, I mean, the first impression is that something is definitely interesting here, right? We can't really say that this is just something kind of bad, right? And unless we hide those areas, because they were just strange. The bubbles, they do look strange, right? But everything in here, it does look interesting. It looks almost plausible, right? It just yeah, it's definitely a person, it's definitely a human body, and there's some interesting things going on to it, minus the position of the limbs. But it's the first impression is that, yeah, it's okay, let's give it a green light, right? But once we get to remove this detail, right, and this is going to be a bit difficult to do because this is a very high density mesh without any subdivision levels, but once we start reducing those details, we quickly find out that the structure is either not there at all, or there's something wrong with the structure, and the face is definitely going to be the better example of that. So I am smoothing things out, right? I'm not ignoring this fact that I am making the model smoother. But even if this was some kind of a burn, or whatever the detail is supposed to represent, we can see that there's no structure whatsoever. So the eye socket is just a hole, right? There's no zygomatic arch, right? The cheekbones, at least not the kind of cheekbones that we would like to mention, right? It just doesn't really exist. The structure is all off, right? We don't see the jaw, right? For example, that's supposed to be somewhere here. We don't really see the ear somewhere in here. We don't see a lot of things. The nose is just two dots, two holes, and that's about it. So, and the body is pretty much that, right? It's just flat. It's just completely flat without any definition to the structure, right? The rib cage, the abdomen, those details, the folds in here, not folds, but basically just kind of structure, right? So the legs, instead of having some muscles, this is just a cylinder, right? It's literally is just a cylindrical shape. and there's nothing, well, it's kind of oval from the profile, or from the top, I guess, if we look at it, but it's still a tube, right? We don't really see any interesting things. We don't see, let's say, that, right? We don't see any of that. We don't see any of this kind of structure on the legs, even though he's flexing. But let's look at the more kind of relaxed version of this guy. It's still a way more interesting shape than what we saw on that other example, right? Definitely some more interest in here, and it's perhaps even more visible if we use our handy fast sketch, and I'm going to just eliminate the things that I've done there, right? And actually I'm going to remove everything. I'm going to bring it all the way to the original state of this of the mesh. If we look with our material, right, we all we see is just detail. All of that is just some kind of alpha added on a very basic, very flat surface. There's hardly a shadow in here indicating that there is some pec muscles, right? We can barely see it. It's right somewhere in here, hidden, buried under all of this detail. It's more pronounced, I guess, here, but all of this is just flat, completely flat, right? So the same for the arms. Even though those are big details, still we don't really see any indication of structure for the arm, right? We don't see an elbow pronounced, even though there might be this kind of detail. We don't really see the width, just the structure. Even if there is this kind of detail, we would still see something, right? The detail cannot be replacing the muscles. The detail, the lying on top of the muscle. That's the thing about it, right? So I just wanted to talk about this little issue that I noticed, is that the tendency to create the detail is almost a way to hide imperfections underneath the details. First, and the most important thing, is definitely the form. It's definitely the construction and the structure of everything on which the details are going to be positioned on, right? The details need to hold on to something, and that something is the underneath structure.
If you enjoy this content or find it useful, please consider supporting me by buying me a cup of coffee via the link in the description.
And if we bring this back to Carlos Huenta, and just to compare perhaps and better illustrate what I'm trying to say. So if we look at some of his work, let's examine this guy. There is no detail apart from the veins and those tiny wrinkles. There's no detail. Obviously the color is we need to be able to just eliminate the color, right? We need to be able to see just the form, because color does affect the way we look at things, the way we see things, right? But in general, all we see is just a very smooth surface, and just by having this smooth surface, the way it's done, there's so much more interested. There's just so much for the eye to look, to analyze, to just grab onto, compared to something like this, where is the opposite, right? It's all detail. So in a sense, what we should be doing, our eye, it should be examining every little crevice in here, right? Every little scale and all of that, but it's not happening. What we see is just the same kind of pattern repeating itself, but underneath there's just something very wrong, something very underdeveloped taking place. So without the detail, the model, or I guess the character here, is looking way more interesting than the character that we have here on the screen. So that's what I use this is, I guess, this is how I use this knowledge for my personal or just professional work, is that every time I get to a point, be it a character, be it a piece of clothing, whatever it is, right? If I find myself starting to make details, it means that I am hiding something, and that means that I need to get back. I need to either take a break, maybe apply a different material, maybe do something else, but it's the tendency to hide the kind of discomfort of seeing my own creation, right, and trying to just improve it in a most sloppy, I guess the cheapest way possible, which is just apply a bunch of detail to that and think that this will be it, and in reality it's just not. Just to finish it off, I suppose I thought I was just a little bit too weak in terms of the explanation what I was trying to say here. So I found these two photographs of one of my favorite sculptures. If you haven't seen it, go to Naples, Italy, and just be in awe when you see it. It's a Roman copy of a Greek sculpture. I think it's from 2nd century or something like that. It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter very much so, but it's just an absolutely breathtaking sculpture, right? Even on photographs, you can just tell just how amazing that is. In real life, you will be definitely impressed. Let's put it this way. But anyway, the thing about this sculpture is that it has texture, right? So, and the texture is somewhat similar to what we see here, not necessarily in the detail. I'm just trying to illustrate that when there is some kind of a texture, be it color, be it this kind of detail, right, the small detail, we get to see that first, right? Something that I've mentioned at the beginning. But if we examine this sculpture and compare it with this guy, and I'm sorry, I'm giggling. I'm not trying to be rude to the person who made this. It just I find it a little bit funny to compare a model to a masterpiece. But it's just a good illustration, okay? So anyway, we get to see, even though there is a lot of detail, there's a lot of variation in color, there's just so much, right, that is happening here. We still see all the necessary things for this detail to be lying on, right? We get to see this fold in here, we get to see the abs, we can even make out a rib cage here, probably not so well here, but we get to see the pecs, right? We even get to see the nipples, right? The deltoid is very pronounced. We see the biceps, we see the elbow, we see all the forearm muscles, we see the muscles on the lower legs, right? And we don't get to see any of that here. Why, right? We get to see just the detail, and all of the important things are just missing. And this is this image right here, this picture. The light here is very diffused, right? We, even with this kind of diffused lighting, we still are able to see all those more interesting things, right? The more important things, which are the forms. And this one is more contrasty, right? The lighting in here is not as diffused. It's more like a key light. We can see the highlights in here. We can see the material better, just how smooth the surface is, right? So if I try to do that, something similar on this guy, and position the light somewhere somewhat similar, perhaps like that, we definitely get to see a little bit more in terms of the forms, right? We do get to see the pecs, and once we see them, we realize that something is really off with the anatomy, because those are, as we can see, those are the clavicle bones, and this is the neck growing from the middle of the chest, right? So there's definitely a problem with anatomy. That's another thing that we've just noticed with the lighting when the forms are more pronounced. And we get to see just a little bit of that musculature in here as well, this muscle, the side muscle, right? But everything else is still somewhat flat, especially here, especially the limbs, right? We don't really get to see any variation in the musculature in here, just the pecs, that's and perhaps the rib cage just barely, right? And the side muscle, that's it. And just look at what we get to see here. regardless of the amount of detail that we see on the sculpture itself. We get to see everything, right? The deltoid, even the vein is sticking out. We can see the striations between the muscles on the forearm. Those folds in here. There's even a shadow from the amount of I guess from the way the muscle is being constructed, the way it's being pronounced, right? The abs are so clear to see. We see the definition in the legs, the muscles in here, all of this good stuff, right? We still get to see, even though there is just so much going on the surface. So I just wanted to add this little bit at the end, because I thought that this was a good comparison, and to just kind of bring it home with this bring this topic home, so to speak.